Last night when Bishop Sauls was here, he was so enthusiastic in the celebration that he left his sermon here. He left a few other things here as well. I'm going to have to go down to the city. He left his mitre here. And I was sorely tempted to read his sermon since it was so good. But there are too many of you here from last night. So let me share with you my own reflection. I come to Easter with two questions to ask you. They are the two questions that make sense for this day, and they make this day make sense. And the two questions are this: what are you looking for? And why are you crying? They are at the heart of Easter, and they are at the heart of what it means to be a Christian. We're told that two men raced to a tomb because they've been told by a woman who's one of their company, and who they probably think is hysterical and stupid, there's no body in the tomb. Well, that's ridiculous. Of course there is. Not that they would even know where the tomb is. Remember, none of the brave men had accompanied Jesus to death. They all ran away because they were afraid that they would be arrested. The only people who witnessed him die, and the only people who knew where he was buried, were those women, whose voice counted for nothing in that culture. But they followed her anyway. And they race to a place, and they look inside, and they find nothing. No one. The holiest place in Christianity has nothing in it. And that is the great mystery of Easter. It is a place of death. It is a place where the power of the evil one is certain. And we know about tombs and death and evil. We watch it on TV, we read it on the internet, we listen to it on the radio. In the last 10 days, we know there have been children who were stabbed. And we know an anti-Semitic hate monger decided to kill a Jewish child and two elderly people. A ferry capsized off the waters of South Korea, and 250 children are dead. People die. The world is filled with evil. Evil we control and evil that's beyond us. They race to a place where death is in charge. And like the hole in their souls, no body doesn't really prove anything. Maybe it was moved, maybe it was stolen by grave robbers. There's a couple of things there. A shroud, a cloth. It's curious, but it doesn't prove anything. So in their great wisdom, all they can do is scratch their little heads and go home. Don't let that Easter be for you a place of coming to where nobody is. If you come to this church, the body of Jesus is not here. Is Easter nothing more than temporary excitement? Come to a church, race there like Peter and John, and just be disappointed? Because faith is not founded on an empty tomb. Faith is founded on the encounter with the risen Christ. And that leads us to the second question. Not only what are you looking for, but why would you be crying? We're told one person in that group did not leave. Her name was Mary, or Miriam. She was from Magdala. She was part of that original group that followed Jesus. And Easter reminds us of a woman of tremendous spunk and tenacity and faith. A person Jesus once healed. A person overcome with grief. A good friend. A friend who wants one final thing, one decent thing. Let's find the body and at least give it a decent burial. It deserves that if nothing else. And she's overcome with her own sadness. So very simply, he calls her name, and she recognizes her name. A friend calling out, someone who cares for her. And at that moment, she realizes that the impossible is possible, that Christ is risen, that death is more powerful than life, and his death is definitely life-giving. His death is greater than the powers of death and tragedy and evil because he goes beyond death to life. And she is claimed forever by name by the risen one. Don't reflect on a world full of evil. It's out there. It'll still be out there when you leave this building. Life inflicts its wounds. Some of them are personal, some of them are cultural, and we cannot control it. take a breath and listen out of the darkness. The risen one calls you by name and claims you for life eternal. Because no matter how powerful death and evil happen to be, Christians believe that through our tears, as the Orthodox cried out in their service last night, Christos anasti, Christ is risen. And the tears of joy replace the tears of sadness. God has walked among us, lived among us, died for us, and redeemed us. He adopted us and made us his children through the resurrection of his Son. By his wounds we are healed, and by his risen life we are transformed. And for those of you who were here last night, what you witnessed in symbol is that we who are baptized into his death and burial so that we will rise with him to begin that new life now. The waters of baptism are powerful, and they raise us from the power of sin and hopelessness and death, and they bring life and freedom. And the power of the tomb, as real as it is, and as much as it is an inevitability for all of us, does not have ultimate power over our lives. And that is what Easter celebrates today. Christ is risen, and if we are faithful to him, so shall we. The living Lord calls you by name, redeemed you from sin, poured out his Spirit upon you, and he's given you life. Welcome to Easter. This is God's time. This is a day for finding more than an empty space. This is the day the Lord has made, where the one who sacrificed himself for us has thrown away the symbols of death, given us new clothing, given you, to use the Scripture's metaphor, a robe of righteousness and a garment of life. So what are you looking for? And why would you cry? Christ indeed is risen.